Hello everybody and welcome back to another Path of Exile 1 video. Today I want to talk about a surprisingly fun Atlas strategy that I tried for the very first time in patch 3.26, and I am of course talking about Divination Scarab of the Cloister farming. This Scarab adds monsters to your map. These monsters don't do anything special except for the fact that they have a 1% chance to drop a stacked deck. Stacked deck is a currency item that gives you back one random divination card when you open it. Most of them will be crap, but some of them have really high value, which attracts gamblers from far and wide who want to test if their pullout game is strong enough to pull a card that makes them some money. If you're someone that is not into gambling like me, then you might want to sell these items to other players instead. The current value of stacked deck at the time of making this video is 3 chaos per 1 stacked deck, which means roughly 65 stacked deck is going to get you 1 divine. You're going to see that once we set up our Atlas and put our Scarabs in, that finding 50 to 60 stacked decks per map is not uncommon, which means you're almost getting a divine worth of stacked decks per 1 map that you run. Add into the fact that these items are extremely liquid and in high demand at this point in the league, and we come across a very simple, very straightforward, very consistent money-making method. And before I go any further, I want to give a big shout out to Milky BK. That is the channel and creator at which I first saw this strategy mentioned. I don't think he created it, but he had a big compendium of different strategies you can run in the Mercenaries League, and Cloister farming was one of them, so that is where I first heard of it. And then I went to Maxroll, and they had a little Atlas tree you can kind of like get started with, and then I went from there. So shout out to Milky BK, shout out to Maxroll, we gotta give credit where credit is due. And with that said, let's get into the video. Alright, the first thing we need to talk about is the Divination Scarab of the Cloister. This says that the area contains 8 to 12 additional packs of Doedri's Devoted, and those are the monsters that have a 1% additional chance to drop the stacked deck. We're going to want to use 5 of these in our map device when we run our map, and the only thing that affects the number of stacked decks that you get from your map is going to be monster pack size. Alright, so maps with more modifiers will have greater pack size, and then you will find more packs of Doedri's Devoted, which will drop more stacked decks. I think you get the idea. So 6 mod maps, Alk and Go, that is going to be the least profitable. Then somewhere in the middle, we're going to have your 8 mod maps in a tile set of your choice. That is going to be very profitable. And then if you want to go one step above, like I'm going to show you how to do in this video, you can run 8 mod with Twist of Fate Atlas Keystone. That is going to randomize the tile set, and it might add some modifiers, which could increase the pack size, and that is going to give you the most amount of stacked decks you can find in your map. Alright, so these Divination Scarab of the Cloisters cost 3 chaos each. We want to run 5 of them on our maps. That's 15 chaos investment per map, okay? Alright, now let's talk about the Atlas passive skill tree, because that is where most of the discussion for the strategy will be. The first thing we need to do is get ritual altars in our map. You want it guaranteed in every map, and you want to have 4 ritual altars per map. This is because some of the monsters you kill from the Doedri's Devoted packs have a chance to spawn in the ritual. That means you kill them once before you can activate the ritual, and when you activate it, it's going to revive them, and they're going to be killed for a second time. And that is going to give you a bunch of stacked decks from doing the ritual in the map. It's actually pretty cool how it works, and it does add up. It's not guaranteed that you'll get these monsters attached to every ritual, but it does happen more often than not, and getting ritual in your map is going to significantly increase the amount of stacked decks you find. Trust me on that, I will show you later. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get ritual onto our Atlas. So let's make our way toward this node over here, and then we're going to go up over here, and then grab some of these nodes. The 10% chance to contain ritual altar is important, and then we have increased ritual intensity. This means you can spawn more monsters in each ritual. Sacrificial Dew, I'll leave that up to you whether or not you want to find blood-filled vessels. I still don't really know what they do or what they're used for, so all of these things that actually improve the reward of the ritual we don't care about. We just want to make sure that there's rituals in the map and that it's spawning the most amount of monsters, okay? So get these nodes over here, and then we're gonna go up here. There's a 10% chance to spawn ritual over here. None of these nodes matter. Then we're going to get the 10% chance over here, and then there should be one last cluster up here. All right, 10% chance to contain ritual altars. So let's zoom out. This is what your passive skill tree is going to look like at the start. All right, we'll click apply points, and then you go to show stats. You'll see your map contains ritual altars. All right, and then the next thing we need to do is we need to make it so that we always have 4 altars. So make sure to get occult devotion here. All right, and that is going to make it so our maps have 4 ritual altars. All right, if you like buying things from the ritual and you want to test your luck, you could get immutable dogma. This makes it so you get a lot more tribute, meaning you can buy out the whole inventory every time you get the ritual, but you cannot re-roll your favors. So you would take these 3 nodes instead and respec out of ritual tribute quantity, so it looks something like this. All right, and that is all the ritual nodes you need for this strategy. For our next points, we want to get all of the map effect modifier nodes. So let me type that in here real quick. All right, and this is so we get increased pack size on our map. So there's 3 nodes here, mounting modifiers, and then there should be this node over here, map modifier effect. If you're running Alkan Go variant, take chiseled perfections because you'll be chiseling your maps. If you're running 8 mod maps, do not take this, probably don't have quality on it. All right, so take these 3 nodes here. Then you're going to take every single little map effect modifier node, including invasive adversaries over here. All right, just take all of them, every single node. So these ones over here, and I think there is 2 more here, and that should be every map effect modifier node on the tree. Let me just check super quick. Alright, so 64% increased effect of explicit modifiers on your maps. We have all of them. That is perfect. So this is the bare minimum you need to run this strat, but of course we have a ton of points left. We want to make good use of them. Normally what you do is you grab this quantity wheel in the middle. That's going to increase the overall loot you get from your map. And then people also tend to get this Scarab node over here, Remarkable Relics. Scarabs found in your maps are more likely to be less common variants. So let's take those. All right, and with the points left here, this is what we're going to do different from some of these strategies I saw in the other videos and on max roll. All right, we're going to be running 8 mod Twist of Fate maps. So Twist of Fate makes it so your corrupted rare maps and any map crafting options applying to them are modified unpredictably when opened. All right, and any maps modified in this way could have 1 to 3 additional random map modifiers. Think of it as your Risk Scarab at home. You lose agency over what map tileset you want to run, and you lose agency over some of the modifiers that are added, but you gain increased area quantity, increased area pack size, and increased area item rarity. All right, so we're taking Twist of Fate. And then what we want to combine this with is Maven Destructive Play. So we're going to take the most toys here, and then we're going to go through the Maven Chisel chance and get Destructive Play. All right, because all of the maps are randomized, there is a good chance that we can fill out our Maven Atlas invitations while we do the strat. All right, you're going to be finding Maven Chisels from the map itself, and then when you do the invitation, you might find some Awakened Gems, an Orb of Conflict, and the Crescent Splinters for Maven's Writ, alongside some of the other rewards I have just mentioned. All right, we have 41 points left. That is the gist of this strategy. All right, from here on out, it's up to you how you want to spend the rest of your points. You could get more points into Scarabs. That's what I'm going to do. You could get another mechanic. Just remember that we're using all of our Scarab slots in this strat, okay? So try and pick a strategy that isn't reliant on Scarabs. So you could pick something like Betrayal. So these Jun nodes over here, Betrayal is still pretty efficient without Scarabs. And then you could also take something like Mining Byproducts and then combine it with Chance to Spawn Nico, so you'll be getting some money from Resonators while doing this strat. Alright, so the last 40 points, I'll leave it up to you how you want to spend it, but this is the basic structure of the tree which we will be using. Alright, I've gone ahead and set up 20 random 8 mod maps. We have our Scarabs here. It's going to be 5 times Divination Scarab of the Cloister. And for the map device, I'm going to be using 8% increased quantity of items found in this area. Alright, let's have a quick look at the atlas we are using. This is the Scarab farm one. We have 179% increased Scarabs found in the maps. We have 4 ritual altars guaranteed in every map, and the rest of it is spent on map modifier effect to increase the monster pack size in the maps. And of course, we are doing Twist of Fate, so once in a while we could get 3 additional random map mods and have a lot of pack size in the map. Our slash played before we start is 5 days, 14 hours, 23 minutes, and 9 seconds. And here is the tab in which I will be putting all of my loot. Currency goes in here, Scarabs goes in here, and I think I will find a stash tab to put in any T17 maps I find, so we can also include that in the calculation. With that said, let's get started. Alright guys, we are back after finishing our 20 maps. Let's do a quick slash played. So we're looking at 5 days, 16 hours, 31 minutes, and 54 seconds. That is roughly 2 hours and 12 minutes is how long it took us to run the 20 maps over here. So you're looking at about 5 minutes per map, and then a little bit extra if you're doing stash management or just kind of not being as efficient as possible. Here is the loot in the currency stash tab. We got almost 1,200 stacked decks. Very nice. 76 Chaos, a couple of Exalts, no Raw Divines, and a bunch of Bubblegum currency. Exotic currency, we got a couple of Maven Chisels, not much. I think the Proliferation and Scarabs is worth something. And then for our Scarabs, I'll have to put this into a spreadsheet to see how much we got. We only got one Scarab of Risk, which is kind of disappointing. And then we got a couple of Breach Scarabs, and I'm not sure if anything else here is really worth our money. So I'll have to put this into the sheet, see if there's any money to be made there. Some Breach Splinters, and lastly, we got almost half a Maven's Writ from 2 of the Atlas invitations we did. A couple of Ritual Vessels, not sure if this is worth anything, and we got 1 Audience with the King. I don't know how rare this is, so I may or may not count this into the profit margins. But anyways, that is the loot. Oh, I forgot about the maps. Here is the maps we farmed. So let me just remove this normal map out of here. We got 2 T17s, I'll value that, and then all of this I'm not going to factor into the profits, but here it is for you to look at. And the reason I'm not including this in my profit is because they are hard to liquidate, and I don't really sell maps unless they're T17s. Now I'm going to punch all of this into the spreadsheet and see how much divines per hour we made running Divination Scarab of the Cloister on a 8-mod Twist of Fate strategy. Alright, I listed the stacked decks for 3 Chaos each. It's probably going to take a little bit of time to sell. I have sold the Scarabs though, so let's go ahead and collect all of these Chaos Orbs and see how much Scarabs we were able to liquidate. I only sold Scarabs that were 5 Chaos or more. I think the other ones is not really worth your time listing. You could just kind of 3-to-1 them or sell it bulk elsewhere. So let's see, we made 129 Chaos from selling Scarabs. Very nice. Alright, the next thing I want to look at is our T17 maps. We found 1 Ziggurat and 1 Abomination. That is 35 Chaos and 40 Chaos respectively. So let's go ahead and take 75 Chaos out of my main bank, and then we'll throw away those maps. So there is 75 Chaos. Put the maps away. Alright, and that is how much money we made from T17s. Alright, our stacked decks finally sold. That is 3,528 chaos. I will calculate that in a second. Let me get these Maven Writs or Crescent Splinters out of the way first. Alright, we are back with a cup of tea. Everything has sold, everything is liquidated. I've decided not to count an audience with the king. I think this is a jackpot drop. I'm just going to put it into my main stash tab. And yeah, we're just not going to count that. Let's check the profit from all of these, though. So putting this into the stash is going to take a second, guys. And there it is. Our revenue is 4,333 Chaos Orbs once everything has been liquidated. How much did the Scarabs cost? Let's go find that out. 286 Chaos if you want to pay market price. I think I got them a little bit cheaper because I put in the order overnight and then I went to bed. I woke up, I had some Scarabs, and then we were good to go. But if you're paying a market price, it's 286 Chaos. So let's subtract that from this count over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. All right, there's 286. I'll move that over here. So 4,047 Chaos Orbs is roughly equal to 21 Divine Orbs. Take that and divide it by the amount of time it took us to run these maps. Let's say 2.5 hours, because it does take a little bit of time to liquidate all of these random things. So we take 21 Divines, we divide it by 2.5 hours, and we get 8.4 Divines per hour if you can manage to run the maps at the pace that I did. And this is excluding any jackpot drops that you might find from Ritual, that you might find while mapping, because these are 8 mod maps with Twist of Fate, and it also excludes some of the other Scarabs and maps we were unable to liquidate. Alright, now that we've done the strategy, what are my closing thoughts? I think that doing it on Twist of Fate is a fun little bit of a variety on your map, although I'm not sure if spending your extra points on Scarabs is the way to go. Anytime you're farming Scarabs without the more Scarabs modifier on your maps, either through T17s or T16.5s, it just doesn't seem like you get a lot of Scarabs that are worth a lot of money. And what I would do instead is maybe use those points on Betrayal. The medallions are currently worth a lot. Some of the Allflame members are worth a lot. Or I would just go full send on the Maven Destructive Play, get all of these map nodes over here, and then grab the map tier effect modifiers, and just farm a lot of maps to run with Invitation. And of course, if you don't like the idea of not picking your tile set, you could always scry a Divination card onto Jungle Valley. So here I have the Apothecary Divination card scried from Defiled Cathedral, and then you can run 8 mod Jungle Valleys with the Eldritch Altars, so you would spend your points on the blue altars here. That one is pretty well laid out in the max roll guide. Alright, and this is going to give you a chance to find more divination cards. It's going to give you a chance to find those apothecaries, and if you're lucky, you're going to see those duplicate basic currency altars show up, and that does in fact apply to stacked deck. And the last tip I'll give is when you're running Ritual, try to activate the Ritual that had the most stacked decks drop on top of it first. That's because those monsters have a higher percent chance of recurring in Rituals 2, 3, and 4. So that's how you're seeing me get like 10 stacked decks to drop from the Ritual encounters instead of 3 or 4. That's because I did the one that had the highest amount of stacked decks drop first, and then I come back and do the other. It involves a little bit of backtracking. The div per hour is probably the same amongst the two strats once you factor in the amount of time it takes you to go back instead of just run the rituals as you see them. But if you want more divs per map, then you might want to try out that strategy so you can optimize the number of stacked decks that drop from the ritual. And that's it for this video, guys. Liked it if you liked it. Subscribe for more Path of Exile 1 content. We're going to be trying to do a couple more videos before the league dies off. I have a build guide I want to do for the Blight of Contagion build that I'm running. And then we also want to explore some other meme or off-meta builds. Alright, I've been kind of working behind the scenes on that while I take a little break from the game after finishing 40/40 challenges. Speaking of which, if you guys are still playing, check out that video. Get your challenges done. Get that armor set. It looks good in PoE 1 and it looks even better in PoE 2. And with that said, I'll see you guys soon with a new video. Bye!